What do you think the most common fantasy of a woman is?
Dominance.
Bingo.
I mean, yeah.
Number 10, strangers in the night. 9, group. 7, laying you out on display for other people to see, meaning you're having in front of other people. 6, sexually ravaged. 5, 4, to leave it as a tip. 2, strap on, I'm going in. That's pretty brutal, right? And then number 1 is SA fantasies.
According to the list, number 1 fantasy of women is the thing that you all are saying that you hate. It's just proof of the contradictory nature of following what women say as according to what they do. Women love that.
A fantasy isn't a safe situation.
How is a fantasy?
And also, let me add to this, a lot of SA victims will fantasize
over trauma.
Their trauma. Even though it was a bad experience for them, they then fetishize their own trauma.
As a man, I would never fetishize somebody beating me.
And you're a man. We are women.
And fellas, that last point that she said is a main takeaway that you need to have. They are inherently different. They are weird. They're wired funny. That's just what it is. I had a comment because I had like the bagel video or something like that. You know, the short dude, Bagel Boss, and I was talking about how basically, you know, you just got to accept women as they are. And if you want women, you're going to have to play the game. There's no way around that. Somebody in the comments said I lost a plot and I was wrong and I'm a part of the problem for saying that. Listen, some of y'all dudes hate reality. Y'all hate reality and y'all hate the truth, yet y'all subscribe to this red pill shit that's supposed to be the truth. Y'all hate reality, and what y'all want to do is just continue to be mad at reality instead of accepting reality. You do not want to get results. You do not want to change results. You want the women to change. That's what you want. I have a news flash for you. It's not going to happen. And the reason I mentioned all that is because women don't make sense. And the sooner you grasp that and you begin to understand that, listen, they don't make sense, but this is what it is, then you will begin to get somewhere. Let's just lock in and talk about this exactly. SA is such a big deal, right? They made the whole Me Too movement to expose all of these bad guys. These guys are so horrible. We as men, we agree. It's just horrible. These guys shouldn't be SAing these women. That's not how it should be. But then behind closed doors, when they get to doing these lists and they get to admitting it, and then, you know, the number 1 fantasy is a rap fantasy. And I'm not talking about rocking the mic. You heard him say SA. How weird is it? Because that last part, how weird is it to have a traumatic near-death experience to where you were being brutally assaulted and you still, and somehow later it turns you on. Later it turns you on. How weird is that? As a man, you will never be able to relate to that. When you think about it from a logical standpoint, it makes 0 sense. How can you get sexual pleasure from something that was traumatic? How can you go out into the world and say, this is so bad and no chick should deal with this, and this has caused so much trauma in my life, yet when you get alone, you fantasize about that same trauma? It is extremely weird. So these are the takeaways that you need to have from this, other than just the surface level of what it is. A fundamental understanding that you have to have. This is underlying with a lot of things when we talk about females, dealing with females, understanding females. Their psychology does not make sense. It does not make sense. The way they are wired is weird. They are emotional. That is a part of their wiring. They are not logical. So a lot of things will not make logical sense. They will go and they will watch these romance movies and et cetera, et cetera. They will tell you that they want to be wined and dined and, they want the rose petals all over the hotel floor and Turks and Caicos and stuff like that. What they are not going to tell you, they want it from the right guy. And then even then, this is the funny part, the right guy is often the wrong guy. He is often the wrong guy. And he is the guy who absolutely won't do that shit. He is the guy that has too many bitches. He is the guy that in most cases is objectively not the best guy for her. He's actually the wrong guy, one of the worst options. He's going to treat her like shit. But this is another thing. They will not come out and just say, hey, we like motherfuckers who don't value us. We like motherfuckers who treat us like shit. No, they're not going to say that, but that's what they respond well to. So again, the fundamental understanding under a lot of the shit when it comes to women is going to be that they don't make fucking sense. You are going to see a lot of contradictions when you listen to what women say and look at what they actually do. You're going to see a lot of contradictions when you deal with them, when you observe them, etc., etc. Now, let me unpack this a little deeper. I am not a psychologist. I'm not one of those dudes who run around calling everybody a narcissist like these chicks. After they got their latest software update, they all call everybody narcissist now. But listen, I know a little bit. I've watched a lot of porn star interviews. I've watched a lot of that. And I also watched Women of the Night, interviews and things of that nature. And one of the things that I always look for, if the interviewer is willing to get into it, because some of these chicks will be gorgeous. They'll look really good. And it'd be like, bro, you don't got to do this. As a guy, you just don't understand why somebody would subject themselves to the stuff they be subjecting themselves to. And it don't matter how good a chick look. It don't matter how ugly a chick is. It don't matter how nice her body is. It don't matter how fat she is. None of that matters. What matters is what's upstairs, regardless if she is the most stunning woman of all time. It just matters what's upstairs. That's going to determine how she moves. Now, there are two things that typically lead to chicks having these types of experiences and stuff like that, or these types of lifestyles, where they get into some wild stuff as far as like being ladies of the night or, strippers, which that would be a lady of the night. What else? Just intimate relation workers. We'll call it that. The two things are, number one, we'll just get this out the way, daddy issues. So was their daddy there? If he wasn't, that's the answer. If the dad was there, what type of relationship did they have with the dad? And outside of that, the other thing that pretty much shapes these women is the trauma that they experience sexually at, early ages. And I'm talking about anything from childhood all the way to late teen years. It could be their first sexual experience. And it doesn't always have to be SA. It could just be some weird stuff. What is weird? Well, if you have, which I've seen this, if you have a boyfriend and you were in high school and this guy is out of high school or he's 18, you're 14, whatever the case may be. And when I say I seen this or heard of this, this was said in an interview by one of the porn stars. So basically, dude was her boyfriend and he convinced her to let her brother hit or let his brother hit. I don't know if it went further than that. I don't know if there were multiple people he was letting hit her or whatever the case was, and I don't even remember if that was how they both did it the first time. If she really liked him, he was like, yo, listen, if you let me and my man hit at the same time, yeah, we'll do it. But otherwise, I'm not doing it. I don't know if it went that way. I can't remember. But that type of stuff, it can be consensual and it might not be air quote traumatic, but it's a weird first experience that really shapes a lot. It shapes a lot. It's a very different experience. So the first experience can shape a lot. It can shape a lot. Now I want you to think about something real quick. I'm going to paint a couple pictures for you as a guy, right? So the first one is similar to what the dude said in the video. So just imagine, and you could imagine yourself or a different man. Imagine another man, or matter of fact, just imagine yourself. Guy holds you at gunpoint, tells you to strip down. You take off your clothes and stuff like that. It's not going to no weird place. But after he strips you down, and this is in public in front of a bunch of people, he pistol whips you and even shoots you, takes all the money out your pockets and stuff like that. You know, you live. But let's say that you had a traumatic experience like that to where you were embarrassed, humiliated, dominated as far as like, you know, he not in a sexual way, but I'm saying he had the gun and he had you pretty much doing whatever he wanted you to do. This happens to kids in like New York and stuff like that all the time who be in the streets and be doing a drill rap and stuff like that. They get embarrassed on camera. You know, they get robbed at gunpoint on camera and they be told, they say this, say that, and they'll upload the footage and stuff like that. It's ridiculous. But also, you know, in that experience, you get shot. And we could say you get shot in your leg or your abdomen or something like that, but you live. I know people who have been shot. I don't see a situation where the average man, you know, begins to fantasize about that sexually. Even if it was done by a woman, I don't begin to see him wanting a dominatrix or something like that. I don't see that. And if you look at that example, you know, could you even imagine yourself fantasizing over that? No, because most dudes, one or two things is going to happen with most dudes. They're going to either, you know, fight or flight, basically. They're going to either become very terrified about that situation and it's going to be traumatic and it's going to make them very averse to those types of situations and things that can cause those situations, or they are going to want revenge. They're going to get themselves in physical shape. You know, they're going to get the guns and stuff like that. They are going to be more alert. You know, their intuition is going to be higher when it comes to danger and things like that. And they may even plot to get the guy. Those are the two normal directions that people typically go in as far as men after an experience like that. Now, the one thing about it is, no, it's not sexual, but, you know, it's still traumatic and violent. Now, I'm going to give you another scenario. But before I give you another scenario, if you just look at that, if you take a woman and she's in a rap situation, you know, they've already said on the panel that the chick could begin to fantasize about that. Now, this is the other situation. Imagine you're a square dude, right? And that same thing, and you're just a regular guy. You got a 9 to 5, you going to work and stuff like that. That same experience that I just mentioned happens to you, or we could even tone it down a hell of a lot and just say you get robbed for everything in your pockets, even your hat and your shoes. We could say that happens to you at like something like 12 years old. We could say that happens to you at 18. We could say that happens to you at 22, whatever. Could you imagine just being a square guy and then after you get robbed, now somehow in your mind, this makes you want to start selling drugs and you go and get a plug for some crack. And now you selling crack or you selling, you know, some other type of hard drug or what? Like, could you imagine that? How logical is that? How logical is it that you end up as a victim, right? You end up a victim of a street crime, right? And you decide based on that, something about that is in your psychology and it pushes you to get into crime. Like it pushes you to get into a life of crime. That is very weird. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make logical sense. And when you look at that, again, like I mentioned earlier, these chicks will have those early childhood experiences and stuff like that, or like, you know, in their teen years or whatever. And then when they get like 18, 19, 20, they go straight to the strip club. They get straight on OnlyFans or whatever. They get straight to doing mad dicks. Does that make sense? It just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. But as a man, it's not going to make sense because we are wired in a logical way. As far as women, they are emotional and they are wired so different that something could happen to them and it pushes them to do some ridiculous stuff for the rest of their life. That is only to their detriment. That is only to their detriment. So again, what you have to understand is that fundamental understanding that I mentioned multiple times in the video. Women's psychology does not make sense. It's not going to make logical sense to you as a man. But what you have to do is understand it doesn't make sense, but this is what it is, and you accept it and you just move forward. And even then, if I'm being honest, the fact that they like SA is their main fantasy, there's not much you could do with that other than go to jail being stupid. So just knowing it, I don't really see the utility in that information other than knowing they don't make sense. So that's it for today. Let me know your thoughts. I'm gone.